Hey, my name is Glen Mourning, and I'm an educator in Washington, D.C., as well as the author of the Crunchy Life Kids series. Now, while all of that might seem pretty cool and interesting, that is not at all how my life began. I'm the oldest of my mother's five children, and my mother was unfortunately unable to finish high school as she dropped out in the 10th grade just due to some life situations that were pretty challenging for her at the time. As you could imagine, being the oldest of five, living in the housing projects in Danbury, Connecticut, things weren't necessarily as smooth or as easy for myself as a kid. I didn't have many male role models around. The only people that I really knew how to go to for guidance and support were actually teachers. So, which is why perhaps that has been a part of one of my reasons as to why I became a teacher just in the first place. Um, I can remember being, 8 and 9 years old and never having had a chance to believe in like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny because um, I had sacrificed or I was put in a situation to have been able to support my mom and help her out with bringing in different items from the church and providing my younger siblings with those really fun experiences. But some of those things were kind of stripped away from me, which really caused me to be really mature and really responsible for doing house chores and helping my mom get to and from the grocery store and the laundromat. So I remember my childhood just being just full of what I would imagine to be like kind of grown up responsibilities. Um, in regards to who or what inspires me, ultimately I would say teachers. My mom is not a traditional educator, but she was the first teacher that I had. She was someone who made sure that I knew right from wrong, and that I followed through with making the right choices in situations when I was 10 and 11, and kids would misbehave in the neighborhood or mistreat people. My mom was that first person to really give me the option of you want to live a life of success and you want to get out of our circumstances and one day become someone that can give back. Then you got to do these things on this side, as opposed to choosing the wrong choices and going down the wrong path. But classroom teachers, they were like superheroes to me, and for that, I have so much respect for not only teachers that I work with, but just a continued extended, gratitude to folks that work with me, as troubling of a kid as I was. Some of the challenges that I overcame, um, as it relates to advice that I would give to kids. I didn't have my dad growing up, and that could be different for every child. But for me, it was painful in the fact that I thought that I was the reason why things were going wrong in my household. My mom had her struggles and issues that were pretty challenging for an adult. And for the longest time, since I was, from 12 to 15, I thought that I was partly responsible for some of the things that had gone wrong. Um, but my only responsibility was really to just try my best at school and to be a good kid and to follow the rules and to make my mom proud. So if I could give, advice to kids in regards to their future success, it would just be to understand that you can only control so much of your own circumstances as a kid. You don't have a job, you're not making money, you can't necessarily, fix some of those adult sized problems. But what you can do is prepare yourself to be able to take care of your own lives when you do get older and when you're independent. I have some friends that are older than me that have been teaching for 10 to 15 years. And they also, remind me that it is our responsibility to make sure that our students see us making mistakes. Because teachers are not perfect. No one is perfect. But when you're younger, you might have this perspective that the adults know more than you or that they're smarter than you. And the other piece of advice that I would give you, as it relates to that, is that never stop learning. always reach for more information, always ask questions. It's something that I do constantly, even as an author, even as, someone who has been teaching for 10 years or so. I'm never, I never let people think that I know everything, because ultimately you don't. But it's also important to actively seek knowledge and information. So, don't worry about things that you can't control. Just do your best, whatever that looks like for you. It might be, getting a 70 instead of a 60. It might be getting 100 instead of, a 90. It might be, helping put away the dishes instead of, sitting around and playing on your tablet. And the second part would be just to always be ready to learn and willing to learn new things, and also to try new things. So just in short, as it relates to the Crunchy Life Kids series, there are 6 current books in the Crunchy Life series, and I'm working on book 7 at the moment. Literally during the month of May, we are working on releasing book 7, which is going to be a pretty special read, and I'm super excited. It's going to be written mainly in poetic form. But the first 6 books are about Charles Anthony Thomas, who is a fictional character who goes to a charter school in DC, and he gets into these crunchy or challenging situations where things are difficult for him. And what makes the series unique is that although he continues to get into these really challenging situations that are tough to swallow, reality is hard for him to accept. His classroom teacher, Miss Brown, in the beginning of the school year, she ends up quitting because of their behaviors. But then imagine someone like LeBron James or Michael Jordan becoming your classroom teacher. And that is exactly what happens in the Crunchy Life series as the boys and girls in room 227. They go through all of these life challenging situations. They learn a whole bunch of life lessons through real life examples. And ultimately, you find out that Tyrone Leroy, who was their classroom teacher, he literally becomes almost like this superhero type of guy to them. And again, the last thing that I would say in regards to the Crunchy Life series is that I have plans on writing tons and tons of Crunchy Life books. I think it's super important for kids, especially kids that look like me, to fall in love with reading so that, eventually we'll have the confidence to pursue other works of literature, and also not to be afraid to read nonfiction. The last thing that I have to share with all of you, and I would love for folks to go out and to purchase the Crunchy Life Kids series, but the last thing that I have is referred to as my self-help book for middle and high school students. The self-help book titled Care More Than Us, The Young People's Guide to Success, comes fully equipped with a student workbook that allows you, the student, to track your progress from the beginning, the very first moment that you pick up this read, all the way through the end, all 12 chapters of learning how to pay their price for success, being persistent, having responsibility, being someone that has integrity or honesty, living life very committed to your goals, and to ultimately do those things with enthusiasm and excitement. So for more information on not only the Crunchy Life Kids series, but also the Care More Than Us resources, feel free to visit my website at www.glenmourning.com. Take care and have a great